Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second day, the second week of Culturama. And we are, this weekend is kind of my favorite weekend because it's all my old students who become professors and become experts in the field coming back. And Scott, you were my student when?
2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
But since Scott left me, he's gone off to do really just tremendous things, including publishing a book, Digging the Hole of the Moon, becoming a professor at Whittier College, doing a lot of acrostic work, running the San Gabriel Valley Literary Festival, and I don't know, I could say a dozen things. And he's also developed an expertise in ekphrasis, which is writing about art. And that's what his thing is today. So Scott, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. So as John said, we'll be writing some ekphrastic poetry. I'll be saying ekphrastic. I'm American. I'm not a Greek. Well, and ultimately it's a Latinate term after it's derived from the Greek. So really with Latin, we choose. There's no guide. It's dead. It's derived from the word to recount. And as John hinted toward, it's the act of engaging with a piece of art, traditionally visual art, but it could be any number of pieces of art, and doing a creative description of the art. And over the years, as people have engaged with that, it's evolved, over the centuries. It's evolved to include more complex interactions with that art. People add elements, people play with the subject matter, people get imaginative. And so I've created for you all a document that has a series of paintings and poems that I feel like engage with this concept really well. So I will start by dropping that in the chat. And then my intention is to go through a few of these poems and the pieces that they're derived from, and then have a couple of exercises. The first, which is going to be fairly simple. We're going to look at a piece of art and we're going to describe it poetically in any form we choose. But then the second exercise is going to be a bit more complex. It'll add a complication to our description of the piece of art, our engagement with it. Without any further ado on that handout, let me go ahead and start by dropping in the chats a link to the Google Doc that has all of this information on it, so you can engage with it. You'll ultimately need it later in the workshop, so I'll go ahead and close that. I guess I'll start sharing now. So as I described, ekphrastic poetry is all about engaging with with a piece of artwork. I find it to be very fantastic because it gets me to consider things that I normally would not consider. It gets me to engage with subject matter that I normally wouldn't write about. The artistic elements that are present in the painting can really serve as a guidepost for your writing. And sometimes if I am just totally drained, or I feel like that I'm not coming up with something as creative as I would like to be, or if I'm stuck in a rut where I'm writing about the same thing. I'm sure all of you realize that we write the same few poems over and over again as we develop our poetry. This is something that I turn to, and it's resulted in some of my favorite pieces I've written, but more importantly, some of my favorite pieces that other people have written. And so it can really even give you a new appreciation for a piece of art that you already love, because you've explored it and engaged with it in a way that you don't expect. It also lets you engage with other times, other places, other cultures with the window of the actual artwork. And that's important. So I have 3 examples on here. Can everybody see my screen share? All right. Perfect. So the first example is an Anne Sexton poem that's based on, get out of my way, controls. 1 second, sorry guys. Hide floating controls. There we go. So one of my first examples that I picked is a Starry Night poem, which is by Anne Sexton. I'm sure we're all familiar with the piece of artwork there, but it never hurts to have it out in front. And this piece, well, I'll read it and then we'll talk about what it does. The Starry Night. That does not keep me from having a terrible need of, shall I say the word, religion. Then I go out at night to paint the stars. Vincent Van Gogh, in a letter to his brother. The town does not exist, except where one black-haired tree slips up like a drowned woman into the hot sky. The town is silent, and night boils with 11 stars. Oh, starry, starry night. This is how I want to die. This is how I want to die. It moves. They're all alive. Even the moon bulges in its orange irons to push children like a god from its eye. The old unseen serpent swallows up the stars. Oh, starry, starry night. This is how I want to die. Into that rushing beast of the night, sucked up by that great dragon, to split from my life with no flag, no belly, no cry. So Sexton, first off, takes it in a really unexpected direction, in that she turns this into a piece that is about mortality and engaging with life, and she follows the way the motion of the artwork can take your eye depending on where you start, but you're always sort of drawn towards this lone black tree that's getting up into the sky. And she starts with she starts with the tree and then gradually describes the rest of the piece and lets her imagination sort of run wild as she's engaging with each of the pieces. And she captures the motion of it and the visuals of it and sort of the grand galactic significance of it, even though it's depicting something as mundane as like this village that's, you know, nestled into a farming valley. If I recall correctly, this is a sanitarium view from Van Gogh. So it's there's a added interesting historical element to it. He spent some time in a sanitarium, and this is what he saw either when he went outside or looked out the window. So the next piece that I picked is all about the lone house in a field, and this is by Edward Hopper, and the poem is by Ed Hirsch. I have one more look at it, and I like the sort of loneliness of this piece, but then you have the undercutting railroad tracks, and it's simultaneously sort of like imposing and inviting, and Hirsch engages with it in a totally different way. Edward Hopper in the House by the Railroad, 1925. Out here in the exact middle of the day, the strange, gawky house has the expression of someone being stared at, someone holding his breath underwater, hushed and expectant. This house is ashamed of itself, ashamed of its fantastic mansard rooftop and its pseudo-Gothic porch, ashamed of its shoulders and large, awkward hands. But the man behind the easel is relentless. He is as brutal as sunlight and believes the house must have done something horrible to the people who once lived here. Because now it is so desperately empty. It must have done something to the sky, because the sky too is utterly vacant and devoid of meaning. There are no trees or shrubs anywhere. The house must have done something against the earth. All that is present is a single pair of tracks straightening into the distance. No trains pass. Now the stranger returns to this place daily until the house begins to suspect that the man, too, is desolate, and somehow ashamed. Soon the house starts to stare frankly at the man, and somehow the empty white canvas slowly takes on the expression of someone who is unnerved, someone holding his breath underwater. And then one day, the man simply disappears. He is a last afternoon shadow moving across the tracks, making its way through the vast darkening fields. This man will paint other abandoned mansions and faded cafeteria windows and poorly lettered storefronts on the edges of small towns. Always, they will have the same expression. The utterly naked look of someone being stared at, someone American and gawky, someone who is about to be left alone again and can no longer stand it. So Hirsch takes that feeling. Hirsch takes that feeling of loneliness that the painting puts out there, but he adds this additional element of imagining Hopper in person, showing up to paint this over and over again. And he creates a poem that's all about the composition of it and makes a story out of that. And obviously it's totally imaginary, but it draws on the visual elements that are in the painting that convey a lot of that. And in my opinion, it makes it a very powerful poem because it makes it underlines the communicative aspect of art and how sort of when we create art, we're reaching out to other humans. But this is sort of a lonely reaching out. It's a sad reaching out that Hirsch imagines for Hopper. And he even has a little bit of contextual knowledge about Hopper's oeuvre of paintings in that they all sort of look lonely like this, even when they aren't composition-wise is filled with empty space. And so he draws on that as well. And that's an option for us if we're familiar with the collective work of the artist or any theory behind it or any history. We can always roll that into our work. You'll be surprised at the amount of art knowledge you have that you weren't aware of when you start looking at these pieces. Things from museums and stuff can kind of stick in your head forever without you realizing it. It's interesting. I'm by no means an art scholar, and I've still just collected a fair amount of trivia that I draw on when I write these things. And so it's like the Anne Sexton poem, but it goes beyond merely describing it and adds an additional layer. Not that Sexton didn't add an additional layer, but this adds a fictionalized layer on top of it that is more than observational. And that's always an option for us to create something entirely new to go with it. So the last piece that I'll read is one of my favorites, and it's a much more recent poem. It's by Ocean Vuong. It's The Evacuation of Vietnam. And it's called A Bodwa City, and it's about the photos and experiences that came out of they're Vietnamese, and they have family members who had to survive the evacuation of Saigon. Previously, when I read this poem, I also hadn't lived through collectively with the rest of you the evacuation of Afghanistan, which is eerily historically parallel to it. So this poem now has additional power, and I'm sure people will be writing about that terrible occurrence. But so Vuong does something very interesting. This is an ekphrastic poem that's not only about the photos. They take photos and they add experiences from their family members to it, and then they also utilize an ekphrastic reading of a song. Maybe you'll know it when we get into it. So this is a reference photo. It's not necessarily specifically what Vuong is writing about, but it's one of the more famous ones from the evacuation of Saigon. And these are the types of photos that Vuong is writing about. Vuong isn't writing about any particular piece, but rather compressing a lot of media and photography, video, news into one retelling of some particular experiences during this. Yes, and this draws upon the grim fact that during the evacuation of Vietnam, I'll read the epigraph. Abad with Burning City, South Vietnam, April 29th, 1975. Armed Forces Radio played Irving Berlin's White Christmas as a code to begin Operation Frequent Wind, the ultimate evacuation of American civilians and Vietnamese refugees by helicopter during the fall of Saigon. Milk flower petals on the street, like pieces of a girl's dress. May your days be merry and bright. He fills a teacup with champagne, brings it to her lips. Open, he says. She opens. Outside, a soldier spits out his cigarette as footsteps fill the square, like stones fallen from the sky. May all your Christmases be white, as the traffic guard unstraps his holster, his hand running the hem of her white dress, his black eyes, her black hair, a single candle, their shadow, 2 wicks. A military truck speeds through the intersection. the sound of children shrieking inside, a bicycle hurled through a store window. When the dust rises, a black dog lies in the road, panting, its hind legs crushed into the shine of a white Christmas. On the nightstand, a sprig of magnolia expands like a secret herd for the first time. The treetops glisten and children listen. The chief of police face down in a pool of Coca-Cola, a palm-sized photo of his father soaking inside his left ear. The song moving through the city like a widow. Oh, white, I'm dreaming of a curtain of snow falling from her shoulders, snow crackling against the window, snow shredded with gunfire, red sky, snow on the tanks rolling over the city walls, a helicopter lifting the living just out of reach. The city, so white, is ready for ink. The radio saying, run, run, run. Milk flour petals on a black dog, like pieces of a girl's dress. May your days be merry and bright, she is saying, something neither of them can hear. The hotel rocks beneath them. The bed, a field of ice cracking. Don't worry, he says, as the first bomb brightens their faces. My brothers have won the war, and tomorrow the lights go out. I'm dreaming, hear sleigh bells in the snow. In the square below, a nun on fire runs silently toward her God. Open, he says. She opens. So it's one of my favorite poems, period, but it's definitely one of my favorite ekphrastic pieces. And it's a convergence of several elements. Like I was saying before we started, we have the song, we have the history, we have this scenario of mixed interviews and experiences that capture this big, broad chaos. And it's less narratively straightforward than the other pieces, but it takes a lot of visual elements of the historical photos you can find, like a nun on fire running through the streets, unfortunately, that's Vong then compresses into the traumatic family experience of his family escaping or failing to escape from Vietnam. And so when that's combined with, White Christmas, which is used during the operation, it creates this really powerful thing. And you got the bonus of me trying to sing with headphones on, sitting down. So that's in there too. It's a positively amazing poem. That's a poet that is really coming to prominence right now and really deserves it. If you're not familiar with them, check them out. They also have some great novels. Sexton and Hirsch are more famous and canonical, but Vung is up there. So what I want us to do is take the opportunity to some of our own ekphrastic pieces. And I'm gonna, like I said, have us start a little bit simple. And initially, we're just going to describe a piece of art, and I'll provide you with a set of pieces of art to choose from. And really, the word literally means to recount or to retell, depending on whether you're going with Greek or Latin. And that's what we'll start off doing. And there's sort of a key to how we can do these things. This is very simplistic, but it's a process you can run through as you do these things. You start just by describing it. The size, you can tap into the size, the media, the era, the place, the title, any number of things. And also ultimately the visual aspects of it. How does it use space? How does it use its lines? What's the subject matter? What are the shapes that you're generally seeing on the page? Where is your eye drawn? Of course, your viewing experience, what emotions does it evoke in you? And you can often ask why, and that'll start leading you towards what you should perhaps describe most prominently in your poem. Ultimately, subject composition, the motion. Yes, of course, the motion, how which is how attention and art elements create the illusion of motion through the piece. You often find when you look at photography or a piece of artwork, the way it's framed will draw your eye to certain things. You can look at color, the value, the hue, the intensity in the scheme. Like for instance, this Ed Hopper painting is somewhat muted, and it's got these sort of like sun-blasted Midwestern colors to my eye, and that's mixed with like other colors that are verging on darkness, and I would probably key in on those things as I describe it. There's of course the house and its mansard roof, and sort of its gawkiness, and the empty negative space around it, and those are all things that to me are worth describing when we look at this painting and Werner Hirsch also. And then of course in the foreground we have these train tracks, which might have any number of literal or symbolic meanings to you. Usually the pieces go on to then analyze it. How are all these elements creating meaning for us? How are they coming together in a way that makes a piece of art work for us? We don't even have to go there yet unless you choose to, but often that's how these pieces run. They start with description, and then a lot of time they'll start to talk about meaning, which our first two pieces did, and so does Vong's. Ultimately pulls all those images together to make something out of them. And then finally, often we have a critique of the piece in some fashion. Your response, either critically or individually, your audience experience perhaps of viewing that piece of art. So this can sort of serve as a key to you if, oh, I just ruined my key. Undone. This can sort of serve as a key to you if you have trouble starting with our initial piece of ekphrastic writing, if it's not something you've done before. So we'll start this process by opening up this random number generator that's in the document, because we don't get to choose our piece of art. We have our piece of art inflicted upon us, so that it's a little bit of an exercise, and we can write things that we don't expect. And I find that when I take on something that I didn't necessarily think I was going to write about, I'll get some very unexpected work and art out of it. And it might not even be that initial piece, but it might bring me to ideas that I would not normally write about. So with workshop exercises especially, I like to utilize random numbers to start myself off, because it takes me to places that I consciously would not go. So this is a chart with pieces of art with corresponding numbers next to it. Now, I would recommend like saying like, hey, I'll give myself 2 rolls. Like if you roll the first one and you're absolutely just not in the right headspace for it, or it's not working for you, go with the second one, or roll the second one and choose between the 2 that you've picked. But I would restrict myself. I often find that giving yourself some restrictions when you're generating new work never hurts. The worst thing that can happen is it's not something you end up editing and publishing, but you still have created something new that you didn't have before this. So utilize this random number. So you'll set it from 1 to 15. You'll roll, and I want you to start by simply describing the piece. Describe it in artistic terms. Describe it via your 5 senses, either as an object or perhaps imagining that you're inside of it, like what you see there, what you would hear, smell, taste, etc. And you can perhaps describe like your personal associations, what it makes you think and feel, what memories it might bring forth. Like this is really truly just a reaction piece to the piece of art, description and potentially reaction. It's a lot of successful ekphrastic art is just really a description of the piece. It doesn't even bring the author into it that often, that much. So you can write a good piece that is purely description, but there is the option of you bringing you in, which both Hirsch and Sexton did. Vong brings in narrative, but does not place themselves inside of the art piece. So there's some variation there. Later, with our next exercise, we'll deal with some prompts, some more complications of this that are bringing in other elements. But for now, we'll just start with this simple selection of a piece. So let's see, it's 11:30. How about I start by giving everybody 15 minutes to roll up a piece of art or two, choose that piece of art, and engage with writing about it descriptively, and you're not obligated to do anything beyond sort of recounting its imagistically and engaging it that way, but it'd be great also if you bring in your reactions to it, your memories, your associations, and then we'll see if people come up with something they'd like to share. We could talk about what's working in it, talk about what could be expanded. And then after that, we'll shift into our next exercise, which I'll give you a little bit more time for. So let's say until 11:45, I'll give you a chance to write on this thing. Anybody have any questions for me thus far? Okay, great. The document is in the chat. So utilize that so you can click the links. And I will see all of you in 15 minutes. just another minute or so. Although if anybody needs more time, I'm happy to do another 5 minutes or so. All right, let me start by asking, does anybody need more time? You can throw an emoji up if you would like it, but you can't turn your camera on. Okay, good, great. We all
Maybe a minute.
Oh yeah, let's do a minute then. Yeah. But let's not really do a minute. Let's do 4 minutes and give everybody time to finish up some lines and whatnot. All right. Hopefully everybody had time to come up with something. And it's obviously you're not coming up with a totally finished piece of writing in 15 to 20 minutes, although maybe you are. I would love to invite some of you to share a little bit of work, and this could be lines, passages, it could be an entire short piece that you were able to come up with. It could be really anything, and we'll point out what's working well about it. Joy, I see you have a entire at least a stanza, but perhaps yeah, it's you got quite a bit there. Would you like to read that? Start us off?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No title, it's just The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters by Goya.
Yeah. Oh, let me put that up on the screen so because not everybody will be familiar with all these. I'm realizing. Let's see. Okay. Great. Go ahead. This would be that piece right here.
Wide, wide eyes, open, in dreams stirred and stifled by reason. Transformation of owls into bats fluttering, melding with cats stirred, disturbed, fading into scratches, shadows that shriek and launch into the unquiet rest, tucked down, down, down. Legs cross, arms attempt to cradle, no escape from self, from reason and thoughts that swirl, swirl, and never alight, pluck at a strand of hair. Try to rest in jarring, sliding shadows, stumbling blind to step off a precipice.
Yeah, fantastic. So you did a great job of first off sort of following the motion of the piece, and the swirl that you described there is really immediate, like really taps into the emotion that this is giving off. You focused in on different parts than I would, which is what's always great and fascinating about running these exercises. You see that different people's minds work differently. I love the way you describe the sort of gradual melding of features that all these monsters have in the Goya piece. I like that you utilize the title and sort of build off of the concept of reason and then the lack of reason. Like very impressive. I'm glad we went with the extra little bit of a chunk of time there at the end. This all works because you've grounded it in the more specific imagery of the painting and your interpretation of it. And it would normally be something that I would look at and say, hey, those lines are abstract. Not the case with you. You've provided the imagistic framework that makes the end here work so that you're able to get into these more abstract concepts at the end of the poem and land it. Or land the start of it. No escape from self, from reason and thoughts that swirl, and never alight. Pluck at a strand of hair, try to rest in jarring, sliding shadows, stumbling blind off a precipice. Yeah, that's so great. And then you land it here with this final image of somebody going off a precipice, which is an excellent ending to either a stanza or a poem. Thank you for starting us off. That's great. What's any thoughts into your process on this thing? But when did you take it in this direction?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's just those are the words that came to mind looking at it.
Yeah.
And sometimes dreams are like that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And
it's like rest. It's supposed to be rest, but it's not rest.
Yeah, totally. Tell me about it. Back when I was a caterer, I would have dreams about washing dishes. Now I just dream about teaching and writing. Like I just pop in there and my subconscious starts working away at whatever I'm preoccupied with. But that's a really, yeah. So as the chat says, you really capture the darkness of that image and you make it into a narrative. And it's not even necessarily the reason of the narrative of a specific time and place, but it really has that narrative of like nightmares, really. And that's fantastic. And that's what is great about this process is, like you said, this is just where the image brought you, right? Which means that you didn't have to like come up with some fancy rhetorical strategy. You didn't have to necessarily have a plan beyond perceiving and reacting to the piece when you sat down, and that makes it really productive for writers that want to engage in this. So
I
excellent.
didn't do a lot of editing.
Yeah, totally. And so
Did a
now
little
you'll
bit.
sit. Yeah, now you'll sit down and you'll polish it, and then other ideas might emerge, and I think you'll get a very strong piece out of that. Fantastic. Let's see. How are we time wise? That's anybody have another one that they'd like to share for us? Yeah, Andrew, please.
Okay, I did number 1, Mobius.
Oh, cool. Let's see. Let me share first. Sorry. I like Mobius, as you can tell by him appearing on the list twice. Just such a strange artist.
Yeah, so okay, here we go. Orange clouds like mountains burn under the weight of the falling sun, and 2 rocks jut from the green ocean where the sharks swim. A pelican as large as a pterodactyl flies the sage home. A man wears a robe, the symbol of his power, his face broad, dark, his hands a vice around the woman, green from the ocean. She is out cold, and his eyes are free to bore, to memorize. Beams of black from his head, a halo of darkness, his intent unknown. But I fear for the woman, vulnerable at the hands of man, so enthralled by her figure. I cannot help but think that she is the victim, that she is not the monster we are told she is. No, she tries to protect herself, her ocean, so green, perhaps it is dying. She may be the last, the only, and this man is the one to take her, to take the ocean, to set the mountains ablaze, to charge the sharks. Perhaps the sage and his pelican dactyl stay away from the world soaring above to remain pristine, untouched and unsullied by mundane concerns. Perhaps the sage says, what will be will be. Who am I to tell monsters to change their nature? Who am I to ask the world to be different than what it is? Perhaps the man is the monster, perhaps the woman, or the sage, or the monsters inside, ready to take when presented with such succulent, verdant beauty.
Geez, Andrew, you got a lot done. That's great. So I really like that you narrativized that piece. I haven't written about that one in particular yet, despite liking it. I think Jimi Hendrix always throws me off, but you sort of eschewed that and just went into like the straight up appearance of the piece, and you followed the motion of it. Like you sort of went from the central figures around the painting to the background and then back to the central figures again, which is definitely the path that my eye follows when I watch it. And you got a really rich narrative out of it, which is super impressive. And Mobius is so much about like the color and shape, obviously. Like there's not a ton of texture to a lot of his work, which and where there is, it's definitely where your eyes meant to be drawn. And like you really emphasized those aspects of color and shape as you were going around it, the green, the sort of like burnt colored mountains in the distance, like or that are like clouds, either clouds or mountains. You define the other shapes in the water as sharks, and then we have the sage on the pterodactyl, which I never would have defined as a sage, but now that you say it's a sage, I believe you, it's a sage. And it's a strong piece. I love the crown of darkness too, that really gets me. And there is sort of like I agree, especially now having heard you read that there is does appear to be some sort of like maybe not malicious intent, but intense intent. Like something's clearly going on. There's like some sort of like confrontation of some kind occurring. Like and your piece filled in a lot of narrative blanks that the art suggests but doesn't complete. So your piece is great because it's an adjunct to the artwork and sort of finishing off things that Mobius like definitely left out of like an explicit narrative in the frame. So that's a really good way to engage with a piece like that. How'd you come up with just observe and report, or what was there more to it?
No, so I pulled it up, and I the very first thing you see is the man and the woman, but I didn't want to start there because it just doesn't leave you anywhere to go, or I didn't feel like I could go anywhere from there. So I started with that beautiful orange in the background and just kind of came through and it's like, okay, what do I see here? And I think that's the colors, and I could probably, add a couple more things, but the colors kind of really stood out to me, of the greens and the reds and the white and the black and the details on that robe. So it kind of took me on that journey. And I kind of probably pulled a little bit from literature where the white is kind of that pristine color, right?
Yeah.
In literature, and like the green is kind of like the envy and jealousies and things like that. So I might want to throw in a little bit more of that in there. But that's kind of the process I was going in. And obviously, like, it doesn't look like this guy's being terrible, but he's very intent staring at her, and she's not in a position to do anything. So it's always something like that power play is always interesting to kind of think about.
Yeah, and the visual elements really support you too. Everything about her is drooping towards the bottom of the frame, whereas everything about him is reaching towards the top of the frame, which is suggesting that dynamic that you're talking about too. And everything else behind them sort of is in a side-to-side motion. So they're the central power dynamic and focus and pillar that's holding up the rest of the image. So that all kind of goes into your narrative too. So good, great.
Yeah. And then that guy, like this guy on the pelican thing is so weird.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I was like, that guy's got a story, because he's there.
Just hanging out. Yeah, he doesn't fit the scene at all. Like he's actually or they or she, I don't know, you can't tell by any of the getup, is in the background of a bunch of illustrations from Mobius, who was this French like pop artist and comic artist, and just kind of respected across multiple fields. And the pelican pterodactyl flyer shows up really frequently. You can see some real 70s stuff in his early work, like those elements. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had to say, like, it looked like a pterodactyl, so I had to call it a pelican dactyl.
Pelican dactyl. Yeah, no, that's all. I think pelican dactyl is an excellent way to describe it. I think we have time for another one. If anybody, Edna, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to go, not because I think I made a good piece, but because I tried for the abstract for Georgia O'Keeffe.
Oh, great. Yeah. She almost demands, abstract.
And it's really, I don't think I managed anything good, but I wanted you to talk about how it's a different kind of
undertaking.
Tackling. White bursts in, blends like the loudest of color, spiraling into the center. Cream steered into a giant mug. Angels swirled into your day. White scarves in your stormy wind. Hurricane of limbs and swifted bodies snailing their way into infinite clouds. In the canyons of your curves, of your volcanic pool, where the black hole pulls your long virgin's hair into its heart.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah, I love the scarf imagery. I also like, so I like that you start like the painting sort of nebulous and impressionistic, like being stirred into coffee, or a scarf whipping through a storm. And then you gradually focus in on a set of images that sound like a couple making out to me at the very end there. Like, it's very appropriate for Georgia O'Keeffe too, because people see a lot of sensual imagery in even her abstract pieces. Like there's a series of like door or flower paintings that she has that people will, the flowers especially, but people will argue that like a lot of the flowers are representations of like vaginas or the female figure. And like at first it sort of just seems to be semi-abstract, and then you sort of zero in and you start to see an image. And as your poem goes, like and as you cycle through the starting images you have there, and you zero in on the the couple at the end there. I really see it, even though obviously it's an abstract piece. And I think the thing that sells it is the observation and sort of codifying of the abstract elements at first, and then this really tangible thing there at the end. What did you what I think you did great. What part of the process did you feel like you were missing?
It doesn't. I don't think it holds as an integral piece, because it's kind of like all kinds of ideas thrown together and not
Yeah.
not yet holding. But
so if
yeah.
I wrote that and I wanted to narrativize it, I would look back through all those images that you came up with at the outset of the poem, like the scarf whipping in the wind and the cream being stirred into the coffee and the other elements, and I might make them into. And this is where we come in, and this is obviously me. You might do something else entirely, but I might make it into a narrative leading up to that final image that you use, using those other images that I pulled from the painting, and that might really come together into a piece, like the painting is representing an entire string of events leading up to that image at the end. You know, if I wrote it that way, if I felt like compelled to put it into a narrative poem, which you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be, or you could alternatively organize it around yourself. Like, these are the memories that standing in front of this thing and looking at it are evoking in you. And then you bring yourself more into the poem and you come to some final conclusion about what it means that all of these things were brought up for you as you looked at these colors. Like, is this making you think about a particular time in your life, like a particular person, like a particular event that all these images are coming from? And that's a way to like codify things that seem disconnected but aren't. Because remember, all of these things are coming from the same machine. So there's going to be some linkage there if we dig for it long enough. I definitely see, if nothing else, like a tonal connection for almost everything that you stuck in that piece there. So I think that if you pick one of those rhetorical strategies, you could definitely have a really cohesive piece that you make out of it. I quite liked it. Like, but I too myself am more of a narrative writer. So if I have something that's very abstract, I will try to make it confessional or make it a story or make it a vignette, because that's just what I like as an artist. So I usually am not satisfied with just a collection of images that sort of is abstractly connected either. And I'm always pushing to have that final step that unifies everything. So I sympathize, but I think you have a really strong start there, and I think you can do something with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So it's 12:10. We have 35. Yeah. So at this point, we probably better pop into the second exercise that I have for all of you. John, we're done at 12:45, right? Great. Okay. So the second exercise I have is similar but different, and it offers a complication for us in a variety of possible ways. And much like the other piece, it'll start with the art piece, and then it has several possible different directions that you can go in. There we go. So this second exercise, I will ask you to roll for a piece of art, and then not start up yet, but head down here and set the random number generator between 1 and 7. And roll for one of these possible prompts. And these are more complex. They provide a rhetorical strategy to go through the elements that you're observing in the piece of art. So this first one, for instance, it starts off a little more simply than the other ones, but not quite, not too simple. You've stepped into the piece of art. You exist in its universe. What happens? What do you do? What does it look like in there? How do you interact with the subject? Try to comment on the media, the composition, the artist, etc. If you want to. So this one starts off with coming in there, but we have some stranger options. This piece is a memory of yours, a long forgotten one. You've just remembered it. Write a poem, a letter, a haiku. What's it like to have this spring to your mind all these years? So all these years, after all these years, yeah. We have one where the piece is a tarot card. We have one that asks you to decipher. It's a coded message to you, and you're a sleeper agent. What's the secret in the message? What's it tell us? How do all the elements make the message? So there's a variety of challenges essentially here that give us a way to design something whimsical and meaningful out of our first step. So our first step will be the same as before, to observe and write about the emotions and the artistic elements and the story inside the painting. But the second step will be taking one of these possible prompts and integrating that into a different narrative or organizational strategy or a set of associations, depending on what you roll. And if you get a prompt that you absolutely feel you can't write about or a painting, you know, like I said before, roll up 2 and then go with the one that you like best. And some of these form really interesting combinations. Like Georgia O'Keeffe would provide a really interesting spy message. It's a, you never know what you're going to get out of these combinations. So let us take, since that's a little bit more of a complicated endeavor, let's take 20 minutes on this, and then I'll check in with you guys, see if anybody needs more time, and then we will go from there. So does anybody have any questions before we set out on that journey? All right, roll a piece of art and then roll a prompt and then see where it takes you. You guys did great with the first set, so I'm very interested to see what you'll come up with for the second set. So does anybody need a little bit more time? I know it's a more complex prompt. All right, Andrew, no worries. Let's do till 35. And then Joy, I saw you pasted your piece in there. Maybe you'd like to start us off. So see you all in a minute. I'll chat you, Marianne. Okay, let's let's go ahead and share some work. Joy, do you want to start us off?
If it's okay, I mean, if somebody
Yeah,
else
for
wants
sure.
to, they did, okay.
I think we can fit both you and Marianne, and then that'll probably be our time. But yeah,
Is that
absolutely,
okay
go
with
ahead.
other people? Do they want a chance to?
I think we got you both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pulling it up.
You're good.
Warning, a coded hopper message. Oh my God. Too late, far too late. The railroad tracks are rusted, going nowhere and beyond that overpowering crouching house pretending to be a quaint Victorian. Pretend victory with nothing but orange chimney stacks against you. Roof and eaves without ease and gilded glass windows catching sun, extra arches popping to attention, hazy columns hiding shadows, and no door at all. No people left for an empty homecoming with no home.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm hoping for with those prompts, is that you sort of take it in your own direction. That's great. I won't talk as much about each of these pieces so that we have time for Marianne's too. But I like the ominous, but like playful sort of like tone that you have going on, and the title warning, a coded Hoover message, really like sets us so that we can take all that seriously, but not too seriously. It's not as grim as it otherwise might be. You like set a certain tone for it, and that's great. Marianne, you still want to do yours?
Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Which art piece did you have?
It was Academian Studio number 9.
All right. Awesome.
And then I had number 5, the prompt. I'll wait until you put that up.
Why is it not going? All right. There we go.
Okay. Kadeem holds a message deep within, and he's not telling, not just yet. Kadeem has to test you out, question you, make sure you are real and can be trusted. Kadeem's not falling for no Trojan horse, no thief in the night. He's real, and so must you be real. Kadeem has held many messages. This is not the first. Some secrets will die with him, and he is prepared for that at any moment. He is warrior, the heart having toughened under his skin, because the world is not to be trusted. He knows this all too well. His eyes, his heart underneath that skin, that gaze. You will be tested. You will be questioned and suspected. But in the end, if you pass his tests, if your lips do not quiver, if your heart does not flutter, if your eyes do not waver from those glorious, steadfast eyes and that deep, dark skin, if you can stand steady and hold Kadeem's gaze in your gaze, if you can answer his questions and answer without holding anything back, without any reservations, he will step to your side and walk steadily, evenly, strongly with you.
Yeah, that's great job. I like that you've made him into almost like a Sphinx type hero figure. That's because there's something really like noble about this entire image. It's the use of space, like the way it's centered in the frame and the way the light plays off of like his skin, his glasses, like his jewelry. Like it's just sort of such a dramatic thing, and his expression is so like enigmatic. It's very Mona Lisa like. It's unclear like if he's like happy, in pain, like he looks like he has a secret, absolutely. And like you really capture that with the piece that you had. I think an excellent expansion would be like what kind of things you might tell him, or what sort of like specific questions or statements you might use to interact with him, because I was so caught up in like your narrative, and I felt like you might be imagining specific things along those lines too as you were reading it. So I think that'll make a really compelling poem once you finish going over it. Let's see. I saw hand raising, but I don't know if it was old or not. Did we get everybody? Oh, Edna, do you want to finish us off with one? Yeah.
Only if nobody else, because I already read something, but it's so different that
I think we can fit you and Nina.
Okay.
Were you putting your hand up too? Yeah, I think we could fit you both. Let's go for it. I'll just hold back my
Okay, I'll be
commentary
quick.
as hard as it is. I like to hear my own voice. Go ahead.
Edward Hooper, Nighthawk, if you want to put it.
Oh yeah, sure. Where are you,
Yeah.
Hooper?
It's important, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's. I thought it was up. Go back.
And I did the memory, number 3. It's like a memory.
Oh, it's Nighthawk. Where are you, Hooper?
11,
there it is.
11. Yeah. If they were not beside us, their untouched serene, their quiet non-drama, I might have stayed. If it was just the two of us sipping beer in the dimmed light, engulfed by the empty night streets, I might have stayed. If the bartender had not asked politely how we were, if I hadn't felt obliged to lie, I might have stayed. But I left you there on the high stool with an empty glass, in the capsule of night hawks, and turned out to the dark.
Great. I like that. I like that you've interjected yourself in there, or a narrator in there, I should say, and taken this. It's a very in a weird way, a narrative-driven painting, because I always look at it and I wonder what's happening and what the story of each person in the frame is, and why this particular moment. And I zero in on different people every time I look at it, even though the motion of the painting obviously draws you to this lone figure here. You're kind of quickly drawn through to these other people as well, by the coloration and the light. And I like that you took a figure that's no longer in the painting and made it part of the narrative. I'm assuming with this person, perhaps, but it could be this person talking after the painting. But my imagination chooses this one, being left by the narrator of the poem. And I think that really adds an element to it, which is what we want to do. And it's probably something you wouldn't have written otherwise, that is now a strong start to a narrative piece. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, we have time for our one last person. Was that Nina that had your hand up earlier? Okay, great. Which piece did you have?
The art was number 1.
Great.
And just apologies for the voice.
Oh, no problem.
And the prompt was a tarot one. So I think this is for all of us. It's called Alchemy. You are a powerful, creative being. This is your opportunity to bring the future you want most. Meanings are deep and beautiful. These are life lessons passed on through the ages. You see this in the background. Is that mountain or cloud? This is the number 1 card, the Magician, the number of new beginnings, of opportunities. He is connection between spiritual and material realms. It's why the woman he holds is green. A conduit converts energy into matter, your goals into reality. Simple alchemy. You are already in possession of everything you need. You have the pink of the sky, the spiritual fire, the olive ground calling your name, the physical earth. The seed of potential has sprouted. You are being called to take action.
Well, that's a great finish for us. Thank you. I love that the olive ground especially is powerful, but I think the raspy voice really added to the readout of it. It sounded mysterious. But I think that's a great painting to match with that prompt, and you did it well. A great illustration. It's probably gouache. I'll have to look into what media it is. Gouache. Sorry, don't tell Anne, John. Don't tell her. But you did a great job of like tapping into the mystical elements of it and narrativizing it. But obviously, it's completely different than Andrew's narrative take on it because you had a different reaction to it, and I quite like it. And then I like that you go towards the apostrophe, the second person, like as you're reading out the tarot card, which is really what tarot is all about, tapping into the person who's having their fortune read. So that's fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the workshop. You put out some really great work, and it was a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it. It's always nice to see your work. So I'll hang out for a little bit in case anybody has any questions, but I appreciate you. My name's Scott Creley. I am a writing coach and a ghostwriter and a professor. My website is at the top of that the handout that I gave you, scottcreley.com. But I work as an editor. If you ever need any of those services, I'd be happy to work with you. And I also appreciate everybody being here. Thanks. Have a good one.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. And next we're going to have publishing basics. So that I'm going to be teaching that. If you came to the last publishing basics a couple of months ago, we're going to be working with some of the same ideas, but also kind of moving on from there. So, all right, I will see you in a little.